Victorians across the state have woken up to all kinds of damage. Really, no part of the state has been spared, but tragically, this weather event has claimed a life. A 63-year-old woman in Moama on the New South Wales border has passed away after a tree fell on her cabin. Unfortunately, paramedics were unable to save her. So a very stark reminder that these weather events can be deadly and to heed the warnings. But when it comes to what we saw overnight, we saw wind gusts of up to 146 kilometres an hour, likened to, as you say, a category 2 or 3 cyclone. And so with that came, of course, several thousand calls for help. We saw 2,800 calls to help to the SES overnight. And to put that into perspective, since this weather event began last Sunday, we've seen 7,000 calls for help in total. So last night's calls for help made up about half of those. So we did see quite a bit of destruction overnight. I was just at a scene where branches had fallen off trees in a street, downed a power pole and crashed onto a car. We've seen a garage collapse, roof come down on a house. So everything that you'd expect when you see a weather event like this. When it comes to schools, we know that a couple of government schools have closed due to damage, and that a couple of non-government schools have asked their students to study from home today, just to make sure people aren't moving around the state, because we know that there is the warning that if you can stay home, then you should. And more importantly, there are still 121,000 homes without power. Now, the Premier spoke about this a little bit earlier. Let's take a listen.
Crews are out there on the ground right now, working as quickly as they can, but also only working in areas where it's safe to do so to restore power as quickly as possible. In terms of telecommunications, I'm advised that almost 700 Telstra fixed line customers are unable to make or receive calls. Work is going on, being led by Minister Gabrielle Williams across a working group of telco and power companies. We know in these instances those two organisations need to coordinate their response.
When it comes to what we can expect to see during the day, we'll see conditions gradually start to ease. The worst of it is probably over, but it is still windy. And while we've seen this kind of wind event overnight, it's going to transform into more of a storm event as we see the day progress. And it's definitely not over. There are still warnings in place. There's a coastal hazard warning along much of the coast, a watch and act for the southwest coast for a storm surge, advice level warning for the rest of the coast, and a severe weather warning for the central and southern parts of Victoria, including alpine areas. So the message is that if you are in heavily treed areas, as they called it during the press conference, to maybe make alternate plans, maybe go and stay with a relative or with friends, and of course to stay home if you don't need to be travelling.